we recommend you take this moment to do what we're about to do, which is enjoy an Alp.
It's a long walk. I'll be back in Poland.
And through my bathroom, huh?
Yeah. It's literally. We came through Germany, and then we made it to France.
German bedroom and
we got through the border.
Right.
Make a photo, and after that you will be allowed to have a drink.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
On va bien.
Thank you.
I'm not happy with Boeing. It takes them a long time to do, Air Force One. We gave that contract out a long time ago. It's a fixed price contract, and I'm not happy with the fact that it's taking so long. And we may do something else. We may go and buy a plane or get a plane or something, but I'm not happy with the fact that it's taking Boeing so long. There's no excuse for it. And they had a fixed price contract. I made that deal. And now they're losing a lot of money, and they'd like to see if they can, up the price. But I make fixed price deals. I don't like time and material deals.
Sir, the only other commercial aircraft maker that could make a plane that big is Airbus. Would you consider
No, I would not consider Airbus over Boeing. No, but I could buy one that was used and convert it. I could buy one from another country, perhaps, or get one from another country. So we're looking at other alternatives.
Tried to prosecute the now President Trump in his second term. I just want to read a couple things. Criminal referral, then a response from James's office here in New York. James, for both properties listed above, this deals with real estate now, going back decades, really, appears to have falsified records in order to meet certain lending requirements and receive favorable loan terms, all right? Her office responded by saying the AG James is focused every single day on protecting New Yorkers. Specialist administration weaponizes the federal government against the rule of law and the Constitution. She will not be intimidated by bullies, no matter who they are. The issue here is what property she owned and whether or not she owned it, whether or not she was married, and whether or not her father was involved in all this. Without going into the weeds of the details, this stems from a case in 1983 and the year 2000. That's a minimum of 25 years. Someone had to do some digging to find this. Am I right about that?
Yeah. Bill, the most I know about the case, I just learned from you. I saw it on breaking news this morning. This case was sent to us from Bill Pulte. We have not seen it. I inquired right before I walked out here. No one in my office has read it yet. We haven't looked at it. Of course, we'll be reviewing it. You just told me more than I've heard about it so far.
Hey, we aim to please with some breaking news of our own. Indeed. All right.
We told you the next 100 days would consist of peace deals and trade deals, and that's exactly what we have seen. The president announced last week the big trade deal with the UK, as you mentioned. Now we have a first deal with China. Just yesterday, the president announced the release of the last remaining American hostage in Gaza, Eden Alexander, who will soon be united with his loving family. God bless him. That's thanks to President Trump. We also negotiated a ceasefire with the Houthis, and President Trump was instrumental in negotiating a ceasefire with India and Pakistan. This is all in the last week. President Trump and his team are working incredibly hard on behalf of the country and the world to secure peace deals and trade deals. And don't forget, we have a tax deal coming too. The administration is working with Capitol Hill to sign the largest tax cuts in American history right now.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Whoa, what's that? That's kind of weird. Don't like that. There we go. Welcome back to the SCIF. Did you see that the European leaders may be all coked up? I laughed so hard. I mean, we've talked a lot about these people are not working for their own country or for the people of their country. And it looks like, I mean, I'm going to play the tape again in a second, and you see if there's a bag of cocaine on the table with Merz, Macron, and Starmer on the train coming back from Kiev, and do they hide it from the press or not? Just really funny. We've got a lot to cover today. We've got Tom Renz on a blockbuster story. He'll come in the second segment about Pam Bondi, and was she representing Pfizer? I mean, at the end of the day, this is all about media control, media narrative, and Trump coming after the pharmaceutical prices as we speak, signing an executive order this morning that is getting right at the heart of pharma advertising, which controls the media. This is the mechanism. You need to see the big picture, because if you control the advertising, you control the population, because you control the media, because the media companies are not going to walk away from 50% of their or more of their advertising. So if you cut pharma prices, will pharma be able to pay these big ads? I mean, this is right at it. We're going to talk to Tom Renz, attorney Tom Renz, who's been way out in front on Susie Wiles taking money from pharma in the past, and now Pam Bondi taking money allegedly from Pfizer. He's got the receipts, though, so we're going to talk to attorney Renz at 1:15 and dig into that. Second hour, we've got Ed Vidal, because Marco Rubio, we've stayed on this theme of Rubio really being one of the surprises of the administration and doing a lot of very competent work. I have to say, props to where they're deserved. Rubio was an original Tea Party guy, but then kind of went to the dark side to some extent. But now that he's in this position, he's doing good things. So we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt going forward. A lot to talk about today is May 12th, 2025, and this is your mission brief. I'm your host, L Todd Wood. Is Donald Trump surrounded by those working against his agenda? Again, we're going to talk with attorney Renz about Pam Bondi and Pfizer. Did Witkoff meet with Hamas? Massive news coming out of Israel. We're going to dig into the whole thing behind all the negotiations with Hamas, with Israel, with Iran. So you're going to know more than anyone, and you're going to get the big picture. Details needed on Bessent, Secretary of Treasury Bessent's deal with China, where he has allegedly done a massive reset and is got it done with China. So we're going to see the details are going to be out today. There's some news of reduced tariffs on both sides, but we will see what the details are as news breaks during the day. European coked up leaders. We'll talk about that. And Xi Jinping, does he have Parkinson's? Nobody's talking about this but us and a few I guess YouTubers, podcasters who've noticed something very, very peculiar with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. All of this is really important. We're going to get to all of it. We'll be back with attorney Tom Renz here in a few minutes. Stay with us. This is the SCIF, and we'll be right back.
I'll give you a plug for Alp right now. So if you talk about one of the worst companies that's out there,
America's greatest nicotine pouch,
America's lip pillow. But who is your biggest competitor?
That would be the Zyn Corporation.
Zyn. Do you know who owns Zyn?
I do.
So it's Philip Morris International.
Yep.
They are operationally headquartered in Switzerland. On their website to this day, I mean, you go on their website today, they have a massive diversity, equity, inclusion piece that is on their website. They have and I would say it's I'll call it the worst aspects of DEI, which can be quota systems, race-based systems. And on their website today, they say we're going to hire 20% of our people we want to be Asian. Literally on their website, just 20%. They want 40% women. I mean, literally quota systems they have on their website today. But the other piece is that on their website, and this is a company that makes Marlboro cigarettes and Zyn and other things, so they're like one of their big partners for Pride Month that's coming up is the Stonewall Org. And Stonewall Org is one of these LGBTQ plus organizations, and fine, you can do that, but like they are advocating for biological men to compete against women in sports.
But this is what's crazy is that and I think this is the problem about where we're going is what does that have to keep that out of my mouth? I mean, this is like
Welcome back to the SCIF. I want to play this video from the train ride from Kiev with all the European leaders. So if you notice, they're in this train car, and the reporters walk into the train car, and there's something on the table. So you see or not if this is cocaine, and look also at Mers, who grabs what is alleged to be the pipe. So you decide. We report, you decide. You take a look and see, and let's talk about it afterwards.
It's a long walk. I'll be back in Poland.
And through my bathroom, huh?
Yeah?
It's literally. We came through Germany, and then we made it to
German
France.
bedroom and
We got through the border.
Right.
Make a photo and after that you will, it will be a lot of a drink.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
On va bien.
Ok, c'est bon. Merci. Merci. Merci, gars. Thank you.
Let's play that one more time if you didn't see it.
And after that you will, it will be a lot of a drink.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Was that cocaine on the table or not? That's what the Russians are saying. We don't know. The Europeans are saying it's a wadded up napkin that Macron tried to get rid of, and Mers was just getting a toothpick. So we don't know. A lot going on today, and as we said, we're going to talk with Tom Renz here in a few minutes. We're going to talk with Ed Vidal in the second hour. But the other issue is tariffs. There is news that Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent has worked out a deal with China. Let me bring this up right here. Here we go. And there you go. So U.S. and China to slash trade tariffs. It looks like tariffs on China are going to go down around 30 to 50%. And the Chinese tariffs on U.S. products will go down also to around, I think they said 10%. So again, the U.S. is bigger than Chinese tariffs. And the whole point is to recover manufacturing into the United States and not allow just the dumping of products by slave labor into the United States of Chinese goods, which has been going on for a long time. So this is a story that is important. The markets are reacting fantastically this morning. I think the S&P was up 400 points, or the Dow, and the S&P accordingly. Crypto's taking a rip higher. We'll probably get Tom Teague on this week to talk more about markets, but this is a big deal. It's one, as you heard Carolyn Levitt in the cold open there, this is one of the things that Trump has been pushing to get done, and that he took a lot of flack for, because you had the financial class, you had the Europeans all working together. You had Wall Street. You had small business in the U.S., which was also spooked because a lot of these people import from Chinese goods and resell into the United States. And so if you all of a sudden make that unprofitable, then you've got a big problem with small business. You've got a big problem with the financial class who built their whole globalist model on this. And you've got a big problem with the Europeans that are in bed with China because their paymaster is taking hits financially and may not be able to do what they said they were going to do as far as, paying them and continuing to allow Europe to import into the United States with high tariffs of their own. So we're waiting on Tom Renz. I'm going to take a quick break again, and when we get back, hopefully he'll be ready to go. If not, we'll move on to another subject.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. He wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, "You use Alp?" "Yeah, I do," says my friend. "So do I," says the cop. "We all do." He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, "Drive safely, sir," and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine patch.
So we're waiting on attorney Tom Renz. He hasn't shown yet. I'm going to have to get our staff to contact him and find out what's going on. But in the meantime, I want to shift to another story. Xi Jinping, the premier of China, was in Russia for the May Day parade on May 9th. And a lot of podcasters and media analysts and guys that specialize in this kind of thing of watching, kind of like the old Soviet watchers, where they would watch the leaders and see if they were sick or whatever. So they've noticed something with Xi Jinping. So I'm going to start playing this video. And if Tom Renz comes in, then we'll bring him in. Otherwise, we'll talk about this story. But I wanted you to see this and you take a look and see what you think if there's a problem with Xi Jinping. So here we go.
And there's their joint press conference. I want to talk about this. His 2 cups, his famous 2 cups. So this was 2024, at the annual 2 sessions. Foreign press caught a close-up of Xi Jinping wincing after taking a sip from one of the 2 cups during the closing session of the National People's Congress. It wasn't just a facial tic. It looked like he was reacting to something bitter or unpleasant. Possibly Chinese herbal medicine, known for its muddy texture and strong bitter taste. This only fueled speculation that one of those 2 cups contains his medicine. Now let's fast forward to May 2024, when Xi Jinping visited France. At the welcoming ceremony hosted by French President Macron, Xi Jinping appeared to be walking unsteadily. And later, during a 3-way meeting with Macron and EU Commission President von der Leyen, something else was off. On the table in front of Xi Jinping, here we go, I have a picture. There was a black cup in front of Xi Jinping. And in front of the 2 European leaders, clear glass water cups, the clear glasses. So take a look at this picture. Xi Jinping's black cup is circled in red, and the European leaders' glasses are marked with green arrows. And that's not all. Behind Xi Jinping, near his entourage, where Wang Yi and Hua Chunying sat, there was a folded wheelchair. Now ask for yourself, was this wheelchair for Macron? For von der Leyen? I don't think so.
So we're back. We've got Tom Renz in the backstage. We're going to bring him in and we'll talk with this other subject later, but I'm going to bring in Tom now. Tom, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us today.
Doing great, Todd. Apologize for my tardiness. I had a little trouble getting in.
No worries. So I've been following you for a long time. You were did some reporting on what you put out on Susie Wiles and their pharma connections in the past. I found that fascinating, and I want to get into that a little bit today. But you were really ripping on something about Pam Bondi and Pfizer here the last 24 hours or so. Tell us what you came up with.
Well, it turns out that in Bondi's financial disclosure forms that she had to give to Congress, that she had represented Pfizer within the last year or so before coming into her position as AG. And, in light of what I'm seeing across the board, anything that's touching this kind of globalist cabal is being just avoided like the plague right now. The administration is Trump himself is doing an incredible job, right? He's got EO after EO after EO, trade agreement. He's doing a great job. But, historically, going back to his first term, he didn't always have the best people around him. And one of the places where he was weakest was the DOJ. Yeah. Now, I hope I'm wrong about Bondi. I hope she turns out to be a rock star. But in light of the way she handled the Epstein stuff when she was AG in Florida, in light of the fact that she was representing Pfizer before coming in, and in light of all these other things, I think we have to keep asking questions and keep pushing real hard, because we're not seeing anything major come out of DOJ.
Yeah, where are the arrests, right? I mean, they keep saying they're coming. We're working on it. You know, Mike Smith was on recently on a show saying it's coming. I've talked to the guys. I know it's coming, but you know, Cash has gone quiet and Bondi have gone quiet, both of them. I mean, so it's disturbing. How long do we give them, do you think?
Well, here's the problem, right? So the way that let's look at what this looks like. So let's focus on Epstein, because I think the Epstein issue is the foundation to everything that's going on that's anti-Trump right now, right?
Yeah.
I think that they've got power, they've got blackmail stuff on just about anybody who's got power around this country. So they're using it. And it's came out in the last few days that almost certainly that includes places like Israel and the UK. Our close allies seem to have been tied into this ring, right?
Yeah.
It's not guaranteed. The evidence not definitive, but there's a lot of things pointing to it. So clear, you know, it makes it a little bit difficult, you know, when we're trying to negotiate these international deals, if you're busting these guys for blackmailing us. That said, they are. And, you know, we look at the judges and the bad rulings. We look at the politicians, especially the Rhino Republicans, who won't vote for anything. 5 bills since Trump has been in office. 5. I mean, what's holding this up? Why are they going against the clear mandate of the people? And I would say that the Epstein list and similar blackmail rings and things like that are kind of a foundational thing that nobody wants to talk about, because it's probably a lot more widespread than anybody wants to acknowledge. So let's look at this. Why would they go quiet? Why would they do these things? Well, depending on who we've got info on, depending on who it ties to, it could be a political disaster for everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to upset the power structure, but that's what we, the people, voted for. And when you look at the blackmail ring, right? So until someone of major import goes down, that blackmail ring continues. And the reason I say that is this. When you have a blackmail ring like this, they tell everybody within the ring, you are protected by the ring as long as you don't break. But when the first couple people start breaking and going to jail, the ring loses its power. Everybody else says, wait a second, you can't protect me anymore. And then panic happens. Then there's no more blackmail, right?
Yeah.
Then the whole thing collapses. It takes about 5 minutes to put, a little more than 5 minutes. But for an end user on a child rape case where you've got video evidence, to put that case together takes no time at all. None. And it doesn't affect the RICO action. Everybody says, well, yeah, but they're trying to do the RICO. No, that's bull crap. That's bull crap. The guy who's getting blackmailed on the end doesn't know how the organization is structured. He can't testify on it. He can't do anything on it because he doesn't know. Do you think that the blackmail ring is going to tell some end user who's being blackmailed, well, listen, we're blackmailing you and let me tell you exactly how we're doing this? Of course not. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The guys who are the end user, the end victims on these, and they're not really victims because they're also perpetrators, but the guys who are being blackmailed don't know how the ring is structured. So the only thing they can testify to is that they've got a handler that's handling them. So it doesn't affect the RICO case, but it does shut down the blackmail ring if they put some of these guys in jail. So yeah, there's no excuse for this to be taking so long.
You know, I've always wondered why isn't, you know, of course, a lot of these guys are blackmailed. Of course, you know, they don't want their wives to know, or they don't want the world to know what they've been doing. But you would think 1 or 2 of them would at least come out that are patriots and say, look, I screwed up. You know, I cheated on my wife. For the good of the country, I'm going to come clean. You know, I'll deal with my wife. I've asked for forgiveness or whatever. But it hasn't happened, man. Is that because they kill the guys that try to do that, or what do you think?
Well, I think it's a combination of threats and, you know, also there's the reality, right? So this is an open secret in Washington. Now, a ton of these guys that are in Washington, their wives know that they're screwing around on them. They all, I mean, it's like well known. If you go to Washington, if you spend any time in that cesspool filth pit, their wives know. It's just an open secret, right? But here's the thing. The way that the rings work is they escalate, right? So they start out, and let's use brownstoning as an example, which is very widespread, much more widespread than anybody wants to admit. Brownstoning is you go out to the bar with a couple friends, whatever, and someone slips something in your drink. You wake up the next day in a random hotel room with a couple pictures on the pillow sitting next to you of you doing some things that you don't want anybody to see.
Yeah.
And they say, listen, you can work with us or you can work against us. But if it isn't with us, these are going to be made public. And so what'll happen then is these blackmail rings will start out and they'll ask them to do little things. Hey, I want you to oppose this bill. You don't really like it anyways. It's not a big deal, right? And then, hey, we're going to invite you to this next party. We appreciate that you're doing the right thing by us. So, we're going to just invite you because now we like you, right? Yeah. So they go to the next party. They wake up the next day with another picture on the pillow next to them. But this time what they did was substantially worse.
Mm-hmm. Maybe right? Children, maybe, who knows? Yeah. And
it keeps escalating until they have total control over these people where, some of the stuff that they've got pictures of is like Epstein, some 60-year-old dude with a child, something, whatever. And so it continues to escalate until the control is really complete and total. And that's not speculation. This is something that is well known. If you talk to, FBI agents that are actually honest, if you talk to the people in Washington, this is just something that's happening on a very widespread basis. And I think that's really part and parcel of the problem here.
Well, you look at Mike Johnson, who went in the SCIF. I'm going to have a T-shirt made, Don't Go in the SCIF, which is the name of the show. And Paul Ryan, he has lunch with Paul Ryan, and, he's walking down the stairs, and all of a sudden he changes radically. Okay, we're all pro-Ukraine now. We're pro-money. We're pro-everything. Yep. And he's, I think, one of the worst compromised, whatever it is. I mean, he's not doing what he was elected to do, put it that way. No. You agree?
Oh, yeah, he's terrific. I mean, listen, 5 bills. I mean, and then you've got the bill. Yeah. So the continuing resolution that he put out just before Christmas, before Trump was in, I ripped that apart. He actually, I don't know if you saw this, but I posted on this background that time. He actually, in that bill, included language, and it was very tricky the way that they did this. They did it in a way that was very hard to see, that would have actually extended and expanded COVID emergency nonsense.
Yeah.
They actually hid that in the bill. So, this guy isn't just doing bad bills. He's sneaking things in that are dirty, dirty, rotten. And either he's so incompetent that he couldn't read the bill, or he's just a lying crook. And I don't know which one it is. But either way, I've waited and I've watched, and I've waited and I've watched. And, Congress is doing nothing. Nobody's doing anything. The key things here is right now, Trump is doing a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But on day one of the next presidency, they can roll it all back because none of it's law. It's all executive orders or agreements.
There you go.
So we've accomplished nothing. And what the other side is doing quite clearly is just trying to wait it out for 4 years and move on.
So what the heck do you think was with these binders with the first Epstein release? I mean, it was just a show. Was that to out some of these influencers? Was it just Bondi screwing up? I mean, what the heck was that? Do you have any idea?
I don't know what they're thinking. My guess is that she, the best I can tell, she just didn't read it. I mean, she's just like, hey, put this out, and then told someone to put it. Now, in fairness to Bondi, she's busy.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a lot happening, and that job is intense.
Sure.
My guess is that she ordered someone to put it out. Someone sent something out, said, hey, I want all the Epstein stuff and I want it in a folder. So they put it in a folder. They hand it to her. They said, this is what we got. And she never even bothered looking at it. She just handed it to the influencers.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine why you'd embarrass yourself that badly otherwise. This whole thing was a debacle. And I don't know, the problem is there are so many dirty actors in the DOJ and elsewhere that we just don't know how much of it's real and how much isn't. But what we do know is that, the entire SDNY FBI field office was not fired. They should have been, but they were not. We're still getting reports of Epstein evidence to being destroyed. We're still getting reports of all sorts of things. And we have no transparency and not a single high-profile arrest or prosecution anywhere of anything. And think about this, Todd. It's not just Epstein. How about Tesla, right? So we've got this violence against Tesla and all this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll throw the book at a vandal, some 20-year-old idiot who's keying to Tesla. But are we investigating the Open Society Foundation? Are we investigating?
Yeah, somebody's running all this, right?
Yeah. I mean, who's motivating this? Who's pushing this? Who's? It's like J6. Just before the election, I worked with a whistleblower and we dropped a huge amount of data on J6. Huge.
Mm-hmm.
Not one person has been arrested for orchestrating, on the Democrat side, has been arrested for orchestrating J6. It was definitely a Democratic operation. It was orchestrated from the beginning. The evidence is there,
Yeah.
but not one person. There has not been a single arrest that matters. You get, oh, we got a gangbanger. You're supposed to get gangbangers, of course.
Yeah, they made a big deal the other day. We've arrested 2 guys who were, trafficking children or whatever. I mean, but what about all the election fraud? What I mean,
well,
it goes deep, right?
What is it? The 734 group. That's a big deal, but great. You arrested some nobody selling, pervert porn to perverts. But how about the pervert porn that was made with elected members of Congress?
Yeah,
how about that?
No kidding.
Yeah, we're going to go after the low-level nobodies, but it's this 2-tiered justice system. And that's kind of part and parcel. I mean, Bondi always seems to be sensitive. I mean, if you look back over her career, and I've looked a little bit at this, she's always been, let's use air quotes and say sensitive to political considerations when she's doing her job. And there's no spot for that in justice. We, the people, want equal justice. And we really want to see some accountability for the people that have been destroying our country for years. Again, if she would do her job, I predict that Donald Trump's agenda would start flying through. You start putting, you put a couple of I mean, there are reports that there are judges who are involved with Epstein stuff. Put a couple of them in jail and let's see what happens.
Yeah, that would change behavior real quick, I think.
I would imagine.
So, the whole pharma thing is fascinating to me. I remember in Trump's first term, right before the COVID stuff, he said, he tried to lower pharma prices. And I remember the quote on TV, he said, a lot of very powerful people are going to be mad at me for this. And then we saw what happened. But now he's signing today another EO that allegedly is going to reduce pharma prices for the U.S. customers. This is the whole thing, right? Because this is the advertising into all the media, which is the control matrix that keeps everybody propagandized. And if you pull that money out, that's big. I mean, am I right? Is that the bigger picture than just lowering drug prices?
Well, it's huge. It's huge. But I mean, here's the problem, right? So Trump and the White House stuff. Let's distinguish between Bobby and the White House.
Yeah.
Okay. Because everybody, including me, pretty fussy about the mRNA still being on the childhood vaccine schedule and still poisoning kids, right? Trump and the White House. Now, I don't, we can't say how much this is Trump himself and how much this is White House, are in favor of the mRNA platform and the AI medical future, right? They're pushing that direction. And whether we like it or not, whether we the people like it or not, the AI medical advancements are coming. That's nothing we can do about it. We can't stop it. It's a foregone conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we can't get any honesty about the mRNA thing is a bit concerning. Now, Bobby, we all know where Bobby is. I mean, you can say what you want, but Bobby's been consistent for 20 years. Everybody knows where he stands on this stuff. So you got to ask yourself, why is it that Bobby hasn't pulled this off the market? And the answer is very clear. And I've got all sorts of info on this, because I do know people in this. Listen, he's being blocked. The White House won't let him just pull the mRNA off. Now, who is that? Was that Trump himself? I don't think, I think Trump is, again, listening to his advisors. But, look at his advisors. Look at the people close to him who were tied in with Big Pharma, who work with Big Pharma, who've made money off Big Pharma, who've made money off of, companies that were representing or working with Big Pharma. There's a ton of that. The White House doesn't want to shut down the mRNA platform because they think it's the future. A lot of them believe, and a lot of people believe, that mRNA and DNA and gene therapy and all this sort of stuff with AI will be the future of health. The problem with that is that, we have to start asking some ethical and some moral questions when we start looking at this, because these are gene therapy products, particularly when we start getting into the DNA and some of the stuff that is designed to reprogram our DNA.
Yeah.
Our DNA, if you depending on how you look at things and the way I see this, we're creating God's image, and we are what we are. And, I can understand certain, trying to repair damaged DNA, but if you start modifying our DNA beyond repairing damage, to me, that's the definition of transhumanism.
Well, it's satanic. I mean, you're destroying God's creation at the bottom line, right?
That's my opinion, right? So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you tell me that you want to repair someone who's got damaged DNA because the environment was bad and it caused them problems, okay. If you're telling me that you're trying to modify a person to make them different or better, to me, that looks like something that is just completely wrong. But that's kind of where they're going with things.
And look at the unforeseen consequences. I mean, I think it's better, but likely it's not going to be better down the road. You know, I mean, that you're dealing with Mother Nature here, right?
Well, we're messing with something that we shouldn't be messing with. You know, as of last time I checked, now the AI is going to change us. AI is going to change us profoundly. But the last time I checked, we have, you know, our genome's mapped. We have our genome mapped. That's done. But in terms of the DNA, about 2% of it codes for proteins. The other 98%, if you ask people what it does, they're like, we don't know. And up till just a few years ago, they used to tell us it was junk. It was just there because it was left over from whatever. So you've got a huge, huge, huge portion of our genetic makeup that nobody understands or has any clue what it's doing. Now, will the AI decode that? Yes. Yes, it will eventually. But why would you tinker with that machine?
Exactly.
And why would I trust that the AI's got it right? I mean, if you want to do the proper 20 plus years of testing and see whether these gene therapy products are safe and effective as they're claiming, and you want to make sure that they work right, well, then we can talk about it, right? But right now, they're trying to jam this stuff down our throat without it being tested, without it being anybody understanding how it works. And the fact that they're doing it without any transparency indicates corruption in my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, they've lied to us nonstop. You remember the safe and effective vaccines that were going to stop you from killing grandma, except for they didn't even bother studying to see whether it stops transmission.
Yeah.
These were never, there was not an honest thing about these. There is no greater failure in President Trump's record than Operation Warp Speed and the push to get these vaccines. And I'm tired of people who won't just say it. Yes, that was a failure. Quit telling him it was great. It wasn't. He didn't get them out that fast. Moderna started making a bunch of these in 2019 before the vaccine existed.
Yeah.
Yes, he probably expedited the process, but so what? He expedited the process to create a product that kills people. I love Trump. I love what he does everywhere except for that. That is a disaster. And I don't, you know, I'm just, my job. Listen, if you support Donald Trump and you support MAGA, and if you want to make America great again, sometimes that means you have to tell the truth, even if it's uncomfortable for people to hear or say. Operation Warp Speed was a disaster. Donald Trump, probably the best president we've had in decades. Love the guy, but that was a disaster. That was a plot. They fooled him. They pulled the wool over his eyes, and it worked very well.
So I there's another layer to this. I think they were running a massive clinical trial without informed consent on the human population. I think that's what they were doing. And
100%.
It came from DOD. Yeah. Right. I mean, they've used this whole countermeasure narrative that we have to develop these countermeasures to these viruses. And you can talk depopulation, you can talk everything, but I think you're right. The end goal is to harness this technology, and they couldn't do it legally. Oh. So I think they just ran this whole clinical trial. But then that makes you think, well, what about Trump's push for the vax? You know, was he just fooled, or was he being told we have to do this? Because that's, as you said, that's the one thing he won't back away from.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so why is that?
Well, there's a question. I mean, is it pride? Is there more to it? And I will give Trump the benefit of the doubt on this because I like him.
Yeah, me
and
too.
I think he's a very honest broker for, you know, in terms of his desire to make America great again. I just don't know that I disagree with him on this one issue about how to do it. So let's look at this realistically, because we all know where I stand. I'm 100% anti-mRNA, anti all this crap.
Mm-hmm.
But let's give Trump the benefit of the doubt for a second. There's a couple things that we do have to recognize. First of all, the AI thing is an arms race, and it's the most important arms race in world history. Now, I don't think that anybody wins the AI arms race, because once AI is smarter than us and has robots that can do whatever it wants them to do all over the world, we're screwed. But hopefully it decides it still likes us. Either way, what I do know is the AI arms race is on, and if China gets it before us or has the better AI before us, we're doomed. right? If one of these rogue states gets there first, we're doomed. So I understand the need to push AI. Now let's tie that in. The transhumanism and some of these other agendas, they're kind of a part of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we also have bio warfare going on, right? That's what the mRNA jabs were. That's what the COVID was. That's what the lab created monkeypox was. Some of these other things. We got lots of stuff coming out of the labs right now. It's fair to argue that if we don't get ahead of the curve using AI and some of these other things, that it is a major national security threat. And when you look at where this is coming from, the DARPA BARDA labs and some of these other things, those guys frequently are willing to trade freedom for security, which I disagree with.
Yeah.
But that's their job, is to find a way to secure the country. And I don't think everybody in every one of these labs is evil. I think that they're just looking at stuff and saying this is the only way to do it. So, the thing about this is why is Trump so dead set on this? Well, I don't know. The narrative is that it's pride, that he just doesn't want to admit he was wrong. But I don't know. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, because I can absolutely agree with the fact that these things are coming. We have no choice but to try and get there first, or we lose. So, at that point, where does that leave us? And it leaves us exactly where we are. So, to my mind, then the real thing becomes making sure that we're transparent about these things, giving people an honest option. Todd, do you know that there is no law in this country requiring informed consent?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I would.
There are informed consent laws related to certain things, clinical trials, things like that. There's a fair bit of common law about informed consent, but there is not a single statute in this country that requires informed consent.
Wow. You mean for medical trials?
No, if you go to the doctor's office and say, Doc, I need whatever, or I'm sick, and he says, well, take this.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to disclose things. There's some common law on that. But there is no statute on the books that defines what informed consent is and requires it on any sort of a substantial basis.
I did not know that. So, when you tie everything you're saying, we've had some other experts on in the past few weeks about quantum computing. I mean, you're talking 1,000,000x increase in capability over the next short run, a few years. I mean, you're right. This is off the charts, and we have to win the race. But my fear is we're changing God's creation, which I think this is all a big spiritual war, and this is the big part of it. Last thing, Susie Wiles, have you seen any more on her connections to Big Pharma, as in taking money?
Well, so, listen, Susie was working with the Mercury LLC.
Mm-hmm.
Susie was working with a lot of people on that. I put that stuff out. In fact, I broke that stuff, I don't know, a year or so ago.
Yeah, we reported on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did all that stuff, and people have been digging into it a little bit ever since.
Mm-hmm.
But Susie is largely reported to be one of the most powerful people on the planet. She has Trump's ears. She controls his schedule. She controls access to him. And, she's very, very friendly with the big pharma world. Now, I don't know Susie.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Stone, some of my friends, that swear she's a good person. They swear up and down. Now, when I presented that stuff, I asked people, I said, listen, I've given you evidence. Can we get maybe she can give a statement. Tell me why I'm wrong, because I want to be wrong about these things, right?
Yeah.
I want Pam Bondi to be a superhero. I want Susie Wiles to be a rock star. I want all these people to do the right thing. But I'm looking at the evidence, because I'm an evidence guy, and that's all I care about. Right now, pharma is continuing. No one's talking about fraud. We're still working with Pfizer actively. Pfizer that had SV40 promoters in their according to one study, in their vaccines. And remember, SV40 promoters, that's not an accident. Those have to be put there intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And they help to cause cancer. Geez, look at the turbo cancer explosion. We have one of the most corrupt entities on the planet, Pfizer. We're still working with them. We're still working with them actively. You got Moderna, you've got all the conflicts of interest, all these different things. When I look at the evidence, what conclusion can I make other than there's influence? What conclusion can I make other than there's friendships here? Now, I got all sorts of documents. I don't ever put anything out without having, 10,000 books worth of data on things. So I got all sorts of evidence on all sorts of people. Frankly, I would be real honest with you. I had some close friends ask me to back off a whiles.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that it would be damaging to Trump and that, and we needed to get him in the White House. And I agreed. But, at the end of the day, the stuff that I put out there was dead accurate. And, she's under the radar right now. I mean, they're not allowing certain people, you heard the stuff about, there's the big controversy with the Surgeon General, right? It's supposed to be Kelly Victory. And then at the last minute, they moved it to Casey Means. Now, I hope Casey Means is awesome. I don't know her. I know a lot of people are very, bent out of shape about that whole thing. And I just don't know. I do know that Bobby likes her and I trust Bobby. So
Victory has been on our show many times. She's a friend of the
awesome.
show and she's fantastic.
She is.
It's just a straight shooter. So, I have nothing against Casey Means, but I want to know why the switch was made, right? I mean, and the argument is that Means will not pull off the mRNA shots where Victory would.
Well,
I don't care that she doesn't have a medical license. That doesn't bother me, right? She's a trained medical professional. So what? That her license is at current, but
I don't care about her past so much because at the end of the day, we all got a past. And, she came around a year or two ago and decided to see the light. Well, in 2019, I was pro-vax. Mm-hmm. So I had a past, right? I was wrong. So I'm not going to bust someone's chops for their past. Exactly. What I'm going to do, though, is I want to look at the issue here. And, like I said, Kelly would have been spectacular. I love Kelly. She's a great friend to me, an awesome person. And I'm not saying Casey won't be, but it's another instance where we're just waiting to see what happens. Now, I will say the one thing that I'll give the benefit of the doubt on, though, is Bobby has been, and I know I can see what Bobby's doing here. And if I were in his seat, I'd probably have to do it in a similar way. I mean, I'm sure I'd have probably got fired already because if I was in Bobby's seat, I'd have just, I'd have burned it all down. But I think that you got to understand that Bobby's hands are tied, and it's not, by the way, it's not the senator. I saw some stuff on the internet talking about the senator and his thing. That's bullcrap. That is 100% bullcrap. He has no legal authority whatsoever over Bobby. Bobby's hands are tied from the White House. Okay, that's where the control issue is. It's not some random senator blowhard. It's 100% the White House. So I mean, at the end of the day, listen, where does this go and what's happening? Bobby's hands are tied, but if he wants to get there, he's going to have to produce evidence on a massive scale. And I will remind everybody of this.
You mean get to where? To mRNA staying on the market?
Getting this stuff pulled off the market, blocking this stuff, making it safe.
Yeah.
Bobby did start requiring placebo-controlled trials.
I saw that for the vaccines. Yeah.
So that is game-changing on all fronts because we know how these things are going to perform in a placebo-controlled trial. They aren't. Right?
So maybe that's just a backdoor, more efficient way of getting.
I think Bobby has no choice but to do this in a very clever backdoor way.
Mm-hmm.
Because what else is he going to do? And we elected Trump because we want fight back. Yeah. It's not enough for we the people that he just gets some things done. We want accountability. We want justice. That's why we're so
future for our kids is what we want.
Well, that's why we're talking about Bondi. That's why we're talking about all these things. So, we want that. And I think there's a lot of frustration because everybody wanted Bobby to come in and burn down the house. But if he did, he would have lost his job. And then we would have got some whacked out sellout in his position. So I'm going to defend Bobby yet. I 100% on this because at the end of the day, if Bobby doesn't keep gradually doing what he's doing, it isn't going to get done. And there is no way, if the White House isn't in favor of this, he's got to build the case very slowly and very carefully and do it just right to make the changes. He can't just burn it down or he loses that job and God knows what we get then. We got Bhattacharya in there. Mm-hmm. He seems to be okay, so, and doing pretty good on stuff. And I appreciated what he did during COVID. There's a lot of questions about some of the other people, but they're questions. We don't have evidence. And at the end of the day, what we got to do is Bobby indicated that by September, I think, there'd be major changes. So let's give him till September and see what he's got. I can imagine that with something as messy as the pharmaceutical world, that it's going to take a minute to get done. The other side of it is, though, is, you look at Mary Tyler Bowden and some of these folks. She's right. Every day she's seeing new babies that are dying, being killed, people who are destroyed. And unfortunately, right now, whether we like it or not, politics are governing the lives and safety of our children.
No, there's no getting around that. And the whole mRNA thing is disturbing. I still think this EO that he's going to sign today on the pharma prices is another backdoor method of getting rid of the influence they have, because it's not just the legacy media, it's conservative ink too. I mean, you're seeing reports of all influencers now getting money from pharma and all. I mean, it's on the conservative allegedly side. So this is a huge issue. I mean, it's still going on.
Well, I'll just tell you right now, right? So, I mean, I'm at, I don't know, 330,000 on Twitter or something. And, I got a fair bit of reach, but I will tell you right now, we have people who do analytics for me.
Yeah.
You look at a post about, someone who's doing a travel trip versus the post that I put up there. And if you see the same number of likes and the same number of shares, that post about travel will get about 10x more visibility than mine on Instagram and similar on Twitter. Censorship is real. Totally. So the thing about influencers, and I work with and represent some of them. I mean, it's private. I don't make it public all the time, but I help some of them, right? The thing about influencers is this: they make their living off of views. So unless they want to have their living cut off, they have to tote the line. Now, I'm too stupid to do that. If I were smart, I would just take the money and run. But I keep I don't know. I'm like Don Quixote. I keep chasing those windmills because I'm not bright enough to change. But at the end of the day, that drives this in a massive way. And it's the issue.
Well, I feel your pain, brother, because we were deplatformed massively for our reporting, and we're still trying to rebuild. We lost hundreds of thousands of followers several years ago across multiple platforms, and same on Twitter. I think we're throttled because our reporting is credible and real on a variety of subjects, and but it's struggling to rebuild. But I do hope Bobby. We've got a loss. We joined his lawsuit against the Trusted News Initiative to stop the antitrust, monopoly actions against free media. But
100%.
Yeah. What are you working on now before we let you go? What do you got? What's on the plate?
Well, right now, to be real honest, what we're working on is raising the funding for some of the next big suits. I've got a lawsuit that I think can get through the PrEP Act and can bring accountability to pharma. I've got another lawsuit I think that could potentially shut down mRNA vaccines, make sure that that vaccine protection goes away. I've got a few different things there, but really at the end of the day, what we've got to do is we've got to build it up. So I'm providing support on a number of cases privately, because if my name's attached to it, it gets a lot more attention than you want on certain things.
Sure.
But we're doing some of that. We're working on with a bunch of states on some legislation here and there. We were real active in the chemtrail stuff. I want to, by the way, shout out to Global Wellness Forum for that. They've done a wonderful job. I do some work with them, and I did some other work here and there on that. I love those guys. They're doing a great work. And we did get a chemtrail bill in Florida. There's, they have one passed in Tennessee, and these bills aren't going to shut down what the federal government's doing. But, Bobby's talking about it. We know that they're working on it. And that happened because of the credibility that was brought to this issue by people like us fighting this. So it's a good thing.
On that issue, I mean, the whole chemtrails thing kind of takes away from the argument where they're doing mRNA for the benefit of humanity.
Yeah.
Because the chemtrail thing is, killing. And if they're doing that, then the vaccines look really dark.
It's not for the benefit of humanity. I mean, listen, everybody knew that the mRNA COVID vaccines provided no benefit and had great risks. The only benefit they provided was to the pocketbook of Big Pharma. And everybody knew that, except for, remember, Trump didn't know that because Deborah Birx said in her book and openly admitted her job was to lie to Donald Trump every day. So, I mean, it worked. She did a great job of it. And so now we're stuck with this bit of a mess. And until we can get, Bobby in a position where he's got the evidence to really break it down, it's going to continue on. So, last thing I'm doing that's really big is we got the Tom Renz show we're doing every day. We're trying to do like you guys and have a nice little show going on. Yeah. Because when we do the political and the legal work, if people aren't aware, if we don't get the data out, it's very tough. You have to be able to push the politicians using the your voice and the will of the people.
So true. We're in multiple different states with our local papers, and the media accountability, like in Georgia, they own everything. They have the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, all of it. And just our paper, a digital online Georgia Record, and the Georgia show we do there, just that is freak them out. I mean, they cannot stand any media accountability, and it's so necessary, right?
100%. I cannot stress the importance of supporting guys like you, Todd, and what we're doing. And in fact, by the way, if you want to talk off air, I'm happy to work with you guys to do that. We have to build each other up, and conservative media, the real conservative media, we have to be backing each other. We have to be supporting each other. We have to be building each other up, and we've got to make sure people are watching. I cannot stress how important it is that you watch and share these shows, because these shows have to make enough money to become self-sustaining. We have to become a real new media. We've got to have enough reach to protect ourselves, because we will get deplatformed, shut down, whatever. Right now, we got a mini golden age that I hope fully manifests, because Trump is giving us more free speech. We are getting these things. He's doing a great job as president. But that could all go away again. So, we got to build up these conservative voices so everybody knows where to find truth.
Completely agree. So if you have a lawsuit on getting suppressed, let me know, because it's still happening. And let's talk offline, and we'll love to have you back down the road. Really appreciate you coming on, and I knew it would be good. So thank you. Take care.
Todd.
All right, ciao.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world, because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another $1 trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our CDM.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and Ira. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio, because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Welcome back to the SCIF. I love Tom Renz. Great segment. I'm glad we got him on and got that done. So we'll have him back down the road. I want to talk about the Xi Jinping thing again here in a second, but I also want to, just as Tom said, help support us. Go to cdm.press, morning, noon, and night. Put us in your daily scan. That's the best way you can see what we're putting out because it's unique, it's different, it's timely. We have reporters all over the world. Sign up for our no ad subscriptions. It's really key because you get access to all 13 of our websites globally. We have 7 papers in the U.S. We have a military channel. We have CDM Espanol. We have Europe, the Balkans, Middle East. It's growing. We're looking at launching an Asian site and a lot of other things. So put cdm.press in your daily scan. We are early in the morning getting out news. There's so much news. I mean, we could put out hundreds of stories a day. We usually put out 20 to 25 a day across the network that are really impactful in what you need to know. We're not going to talk about, Carolyn Levitt destroyed a new journalist in the White House briefing room, but we are going to talk about what's going on in Israel with the wars and how that's going to impact your kids. If you have sons and daughters in the military, even if you don't, I mean, the draft could come it is coming in Europe, and if the wars start, that could happen. So that's a big focus of us, is to stop the wars in Ukraine. We're going to have more Ukraine coverage this week. We're going to have Pete Blaber back on this week and talk about that issue. We're going to continue this whole story on the vaccines, on the pharma influence. I'm fascinated to see how Trump's EO looks. We're going to dig into that later today. But I want to just continue on this stream with Xi Jinping, caught with some medical issues. I thought this was fascinating. Nobody else is talking about it. So I'm going to play a little more of this video and then we'll discuss.
Was it for Wang Yi or Hua Chunying? Not likely. So it immediately reminded China observers of Xi Jinping's earlier unsteady gait. These weren't Chinese media images. They were taken by the French press, and they gave us rare, unfiltered insights. Also, though I'll talk about that later. So now let's fast forward to this month, May 2025, in Russia. During the China-Russia summit, Russian state media gave Xi Jinping a full 8 to 9 second solo close-up. It's not a quick flash, it's a long, steady shot, and it revealed something unusual. Let me play the video. Hold on. Oh, let me start from the very beginning.
Важным фактором поддержания продовольственной безопасности обеих стран стали значительные взаимные поставки сельхозтоваров. Важным фактором поддержания продовольственной безопасности обеих стран стали значительные взаимные поставки сельхозтоваров.
Okay. All right. Did you notice something? Well, Xi Jinping he was wearing an earpiece, listening to Putin speak. Then suddenly his neck tilted sharply to the left, and he blinked rapidly. And then he tried to force his neck upright again. And this happened 3 times in under 9 seconds. Now, some people wondered, was he dozing off because he may be, he might had a jet lag. But if he were falling asleep, his head would have drooped forward, right? Not tilted sideways like that. This wasn't the first time we saw this kind of odd head movement. About 10 days earlier, during Xi Jinping's visit to Shanghai, CCTV aired a 2 to 3 second clip of Xi Jinping shaking his head abnormally. And again, he showed involuntary head tilt, twitching, and rapid blinking. At the time, some China watchers suspected a neurological issue, but the clip was too short to be conclusive. This time, the footage from Moscow is much longer and more revealing, so it supported people's suspicion from 10 days ago. So what are we seeing here? Well, one political commentator, a Chinese one, ran the Russian footage through AI-based medical tools. And the analysis suggested that Xi Jinping might be experiencing something called resting tremor, a classic sign of Parkinson's disease or post-stroke damage. And another commentator consulted a medical expert, and the doctor pointed out that frequent blinking or involuntary head tilt and self-correction attempts, because in the video you just saw, I mean, Xi Jinping was trying to, correct his neck, and he was involuntarily, his head was involuntarily tilting to the left, and he tried to pull himself back. So the self-correction attempts are commonly seen in early stage neurological conditions like Parkinson's and stroke aftermath or mini strokes. And so the medical explanation is this: if a stroke affected the motor cortex of the brain or structures like or certain structure of the brain, it can cause increased tension in neck muscles. And when those muscles tighten uncontrollably, the head can be pulled involuntarily to one side. So that could explain Xi Jinping's involuntary tilted head. Now, let's go back to July 2024 during the CCP's third plenum. It was held from July 15th to the 18th. Rumors were going wild all over Chinese social media about Xi Jinping having suffered a stroke during the meeting. And then 1 month later, he met with the visiting Vietnamese leader. I think that meeting was on August the 19th. So it was exactly, let me remove this. It was exactly, is this showing? Why is this not showing? Here we go. Okay. It was exactly 1 month after the third plenum. So here are the pictures. The CCTV, China's state broadcaster, covered the event using mostly wide-angle shots. And when they had to show Xi Jinping close up, it was a frontal shot only. But in Vietnamese state media coverage, they showed a side-angle picture, and that's the one I'm showing on the screen. And the close-up, we blow up the close-up. And in the side shot, viewers noticed something alarming: a visible bald patch on the lower right side of Xi Jinping's head. And medical professionals suggested that it could be the result of pre-surgical shaving. And the location of the missing hair raised strong suspicions that Xi Jinping had recently undergone a brain procedure. So what do we make of?
So I thought that was fantastically interesting on Xi Jinping. It's kind of reminiscent of the old Soviet watchers that would look at all the tape of the Soviet leaders as they died one after the other in the 80s, and Dropov and the rest, and try to parse what was happening behind the scenes medically. We're going to bring on Ed Vidal in a couple minutes, but I want to just talk about real quick, if you're looking for something for that person who has everything, I'm sorry, that's the wrong thing. There we go. If you're looking for something for that person who has everything, check out my first book in the series, the Conor Murray series, Currency. It was written while I was commuting into Wall Street. It's extremely timely and prescient and informative to this day. It's a page-turning historical fiction novel, but it is filled with knowledge that will give you the big picture of what is happening globally regarding our financial system. You can get signed copies at ltoddwood.com, or you can get it anywhere at History of Books. And as far as there's, what people are saying about it, that feeling of just not wanting to stop reading. I stayed up all night to read it. It should be a movie. And in fact, I was part of the book takes place in Nevis down in the Caribbean, because I used to do a lot of traveling in the Caribbean, and that's where Alexander Hamilton was born. And I did a signing at the one of the sugar plantations, the old British sugar plantations up on the side of the volcano at Nevis. And I left a copy of the book in the library. at that sugar plantation, and I got a call from a producer in London later, about a year later, and said, "Hey, I found your book in the library and I read it, and we want to make a series out of it." So that is ongoing. I'm communicating with him now about screenplays and all that kind of stuff. But check out Currency, get a copy of it if you love to read and just love to know what's going on. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Ed Vidal. The bird flu is circulating. We're getting more and more press, more fear mongering, more warnings about this. First, let's start with that. What say you on?
Well, what I say is it specifically is not circulating. It's in animals. There's one human, maybe two transmissions, no human-to-human transmission. And stand by, everybody. If there is some sort of sudden human-to-human transmission, you should immediately be suspicious that gain of function was involved with that. Just the fact that they're taking an animal virus and going nuts on it in the press and talking about it all the time, that to me leads me to believe that they have concerns that somebody is doing something with that virus, because this would not happen naturally, in my opinion.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
These food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah,
you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
Not sure why that just happened, but my camera went down. That's very, very weird. I'm going to bring in Ed Vidal. Ed, can you hear me, Ed?
Yep.
My camera just went down. I'm not sure why, but if you're there, I see your fan in the background, but I don't see you. Oh, I see. There was another part of another. You've got two. Let me get rid of that one. Okay, that should fix it. How you doing, Ed?
All right, good. Just flew in from Paris yesterday and getting settled back in here.
So let me just say to the crew in the chat, Rumble is still not connecting, so I can't see your chat. But I did check it manually, and everything is. Thanks for all the participation there. Hopefully, we'll get this fixed with Rumble. It started yesterday during our Georgia show when we were outing the Georgia GOP. So I'm not sure. Really,
is Governor Kemp running for the U.S. Senate?
We don't think he is. We think he's going to be the chancellor of the University of Georgia.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
Safer position.
Can you see my image, or is it just black?
No, you're totally blank.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. A lot of gremlins in the system right now. But I wanted to talk to you about Marco Rubio. So he has come out shining again. He was allegedly or reportedly very involved in the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. And there was, I think there's reports that the White House was very concerned about a nuclear conflict.
Yes.
And Rubio jumped in and tell us what you know about that situation.
Well, a couple of things. First, I was on some business calls this morning, and our back office is in Pakistan, and they were very happy because they said they went through 4 days of real trouble and real threats. So they were very happy, and everyone is giving credit to Marco Rubio, also Vance, but mostly Marco got on the phone. He called up the Indians, he called up the Pakis, and he was able to talk to both of them and really tone down the situation. So I think that this is another good mark. He has been a very hardworking Secretary of State. I've heard some criticism of him because some pundits, conservative pundits included, are saying that he is not running the whole worldwide diplomacy. There are things that are being run by other people, like the negotiations with Iran are being run by Steve Witkoff, and then Ukraine is being run by, there you are, you're back on. So Ukraine is being run by really Trump himself in many respects with Vance. But I told these pundits that's not what he was hired for. He was hired to handle Latin America, to get back the Panama Canal and other things, and also to handle with the diplomatic heat that might come from Trump's deportation policy. And he did that right away, and I think he's on top of that. But he's looking to be helpful in other ways, because I think his goal is to either be Vance's vice presidential candidate in 28, or, and keep an eye on this, I think he has until April Fool's Day of next year, he could resign Secretary of State and run for governor of Florida. As you know, the Florida GOP has been having what I call a dances with rhinos. All sides are rhinos in one way or the other. The legislature has rebelled against the governor DeSantis. Part of this is resentment, because last year when DeSantis was running and the year before, he kind of coerced 90% of Republican legislators to support and endorse his presidential campaign. So they're all getting back at him. But I think part of it is also there's a lot of animosity with the Speaker of the House, Danny Perez. He's very very difficult guy to work with. Certainly not a conventional Republican. And so the whole Republican legislature is very much of a top-down operation here in Florida. The lobbyists in Tallahassee make their big donations to the Speaker of the House and the Senate President, who are elected, by the way, in advance of when they take office. They're elected when there's freshmen in their class. There's term limits in Florida, so the freshman class elects who's going to be their speaker and their president. So the lobbyists know where the money has to go. And so these speaker and the leaders in the Tallahassee have a lot of money to interfere in the primaries. So as a result, the winners of the Republican primaries are almost always those endorsed by the establishment in Tallahassee, which is bought and paid for by a lot of lobbyists up there. So that's why I say that Florida is a red state. It's a Republican state. It has a Republican supermajority in the state legislature. And yet it does not have it has a conservative minority. And that's because of the rhino leadership. So I think Rubio could very easily step into that, because the candidates so far are Byron Donalds. He seems to be allied with Perez and the rhinos in the legislature, which is unusual, because when I listen to him on Fox Business with Larry Kudlow and Stuart Barney, he's a real libertarian. He's very good on economics, but there are a lot of question marks about him, including the people that he has supported in the past. The vice chairman of the Republican Party of Florida that he supported has just been, it's been found out that when he was a prison guard he had sex with one of the inmates in a women's prison. So not a clean guy anyway. So there's a lot of uncertainty here. The other candidate for governor potentially is Casey DeSantis, who would be taking over for Ron. And that's really, I think that would really turn off a lot of people because it would be too much like Cornelia Wallace running for Governor Wallace. And then also in Argentina, you've got Isabelita Perón and Cristina Kirchner. So I think that would rub a lot of people the wrong way. There are also leading Democrats who have declared their campaign for governor as independent. The Senator Jason Pizzo from Broward County, he was the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. He left the Democrat Party and he just launched his independent campaign for Tallahassee, the governor. So there's a lot of influx here. And I would not be surprised if Rubio, and I think he's got until April 1st, is my guess, he could very easily resign from the cabinet with honor and launch a campaign for governor. He would be very hard to beat. He would win the Republican primary and then sweep in the general. So Rubio is really working very hard. I think he's being very consistent. He's following the Trump line. He's being tough on visas for these jihadists who are studying in our universities. And he really wants to make a go of it. When you understand Rubio, he is not a private sector man. He does not really function in the private sector very well, but he's a good public sector. He's making a go of it. He comes from a very modest family. Miami is full of people who came, especially in the 60s, and did very well. His family was very modest, did not have that kind of success. And so I think in some respects, he has kind of he's feeling he feels a little awkward with all the Cubans who are funding him. But he's doing his job. He's really making everyone proud. And I'd say at the very least, he would be the vice presidential candidate with J.D. Vance.
Well, that's interesting insight on the governor. I hadn't thought of that because people were talking about Matt Gaetz, but he kind of crashed and burned.
No, he's now doing AO's American America Network, and he's doing the bidding for Hudson and Morgan law firm. That's another thing. So he's really been a big disappointment. I don't think there is anybody else that could run on the Republican side. Byron Donalds should be good. I mean, he talks a good game on economics, but he has a lot of baggage. He has a lot of explaining to do. And then Casey is Mrs. DeSantis, so we don't necessarily like that. So and really, this guy, Senator Jason Pizzo, the Democrat now turned independent, he would not be a good choice. John Morgan of the law firm Morgan & Morgan was thinking of running as an independent, but I think he's getting everything he needs from Speaker Perez in the current legislature. So why run for governor when the legislature will do what you want?
Wow.
Let
me ask you this. Speaking of lobbyists, I saw a documentary, which I had no idea about, the phosphate mining in Florida. It's a little known fact. Florida is one of the main areas for phosphate mining, mostly over toward Pinellas, but it creates radon and radioactive, runoff that is really destroying a lot of the environment in Florida, but it's being hushed up by a lot of this lobbyists in Tallahassee. Do you know anything about that?
No, but I'm not surprised because right here next to where I live in Doral, and just north of us is Miami Lakes. They have blasting issues, and they've been having them for 10 or 20 years. And what happens is that I guess South Florida has a lot of good gravel for generally for building roads, creating gravel. So these mining companies go in and blast to create gravel. And then, we've looked at their contributions, their donations, and they make good donations to the local legislators, the county commissioners, and there's no complaining about it. I've told them they should file, the residents of Miami Lakes should file a class action lawsuit, get themselves a real lawyer, not a pro bono case. But they don't seem to have their act together that well. And it's really their property values are being diminished by all this blasting, which is causing cracks in the wall and breaking their, cracks in their swimming pools. And so I'm not surprised if something like that would go on in Pinellas. I know from other people in the Defend Florida team that Pinellas has a lot of corruption at the super.
Well, it was
level.
fascinating, and I'm debating whether to put this up on the Miami Independent because we have to be right about what we do because they're well funded. But you'd take in the documentary they take a Geiger counter and put it on the children's playground that had been redone, and the thing is at Fukushima levels, and the kids are playing all over it. It's unbelievable.
Yep. And the other thing like that, the Geiger counters is the G5 antennas. That's something else that's happening even here in Doral and in further south in Dade County. So those are top issues. I just sent you something from my trip to France, a dispatch from Normandy on we were able to tour the battlefields of Normandy. So I hope you'll have that up.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot. I took a lot of pictures, not professional pictures, but they're authentic. So we were there.
That's kind. Well, Ed, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming on short notice. I just wanted to get on Rubio after the Pakistani thing. So I'll have you back down the road. Take care.
If they'd had a war, our back office would have been incinerated. So what can I say?
Yes. Take care, my friend.
Okay. Ciao. Thank you.
Okay, ready?
Ready. So we're out in the field in South Dakota shooting pheasants, and we're coming out here to a Milo field you can see behind us, and I was throwing in an ALP, someone else was using a tobacco product, and then somebody, and I'm not going to name names, pulled that out in public at a hunt. And so that's obviously yesterday. What we have here, ALP, is tomorrow, and we're going to make that official by symbolically ending the long reign of this product. Willie Robertson happened to be hunting with us. We don't have a mechanical fur, but we do have former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. With an arm. Willie's got a 12 gauge. I've got my trusty 20, and we're going to see what we can do to usher out the Zen aircraft. Yes! So, I should say, alppouch.com, for sale now, alppouch.com, usher in tomorrow a brand new world of nicotine pouches, the American Lip Pillow, on sale now. Warning! This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us today on a Monday. Please put cdm.press in your daily scan. You know, we ran the ad for Marjorie Wildcraft last segment, cdmfood.com. She's got a wealth of free material on that website. And then if you're really serious about growing your own food and being resilient, join her Grow Network. And it's a subscription. It's not that expensive. And just use it as a resource to grow your capability and grow food and have a place to go to get questions answered and all the new stuff coming out and a variety of information on greenhouses, on soil, on everything you need to know. So cdmfood.com. And also take care of our financial advisor, David Cross. If you have any kind of issue in your life financially, death, sale of business, divorce, whatever, give David a call. Easy conversation at usassetmanagement.com. That's us-am.com. and talk to him about what's going on, and see if he can help you long term. I wanted to really bring up an issue in Georgia, because the Turning Point has endorsed Josh McCoon, who is the head of the Georgia GOP right now, who's literally in bed with Kemp. Kemp pays his salary. McCoon is with the Technical College of Georgia, and he runs the Georgia GOP. There's been a lot of behavioral issues and lack of transparency. There was a debate between David Cross, who is going against McCoon to try to take the position in Georgia. And I wanted to run that debate because I just find it fascinating as to the lack of transparency that we have been seeing coming from the Georgia GOP. So I'm going to bring that up and play some of that, and then we will discuss it. So here we go.
Some clarity around why this vote came down the way it did, and also some other things that have been discussed in the past days. So here's a picture of Josh McCoon and David Cross up on stage. They appeared together. They answered questions back and forth. And a couple of the notable ones that I wanted to make sure people heard was the feeling about the 2020 election. Now, keep in mind, Trump has consistently said that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. And many of those who have followed this, many of those who have done the analysis, concur. They can see things in the vote results that simply don't make sense. And every time you seem to find something that needs more explanation, often our Secretary of State or his general counsel or counties or their election boards stand in the way of uncovering data that might provide additional information. Only recently, when Tulsi Gabbard came forward and said they had evidence that indicated that the voting machines could in fact be hacked and the results interfered with or changed, did this become just a polarizing now issue. And notably, it was frustrating to many that despite that, and despite the president's executive order stating that he wanted I wanted the states to move to hand-marked paper ballots, hand counting, and single-day voting. Fortunately, bizarrely so, Georgia did not enact any of those. They seemed to shy away from doing that. And we had heard, and many have heard earlier in the year, that in fact the governor didn't want any election integrity, any serious election integrity legislation to reach the desk. And if it did, he was going to have retribution perhaps against the lawmakers that brought that forward. So Moore and Charlie Bird and a couple others tried to push, yet everybody seemed to be standing in the way. So we'll come back to that. Mallory Staples opened the day with a speech about all the concerns around our current legislature and how many of them, even though they may call themselves Republicans, did not and don't seem to be acting as Republicans as we go through this. Let me highlight one particular question regarding what I just talked about. It was the 2020 election rigged and stolen?
Oh no, sorry. All right, do you believe that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen?
Yes. Yes. There is no question in my mind that fraudulent activities by the Democrats changed the outcome of the 2020 election. There's no, I mean, you look at them loading voting equipment in vans and driving around, finding people to vote. The absentee ballot issue alone, we got the law change that you have to put a wet signature on a piece of paper to request an absentee ballot now. 374,000 people that allegedly voted absentee in 2020 disappeared from the 2024 election. So of course they cheated. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so if you listen very closely to what McCoon said, he was very careful to say the Democrats cheated. He did not get into machines. He did not get into, is this broader than just one party? He didn't get into any of that. Trump has said consistently, this was rigged and stolen. And in another presentation just a couple of weeks ago, Josh McCoon talked about spending time with President Trump. He relayed, if I get this right, he said he was invited for about a 15-minute meeting that ended up lasting about an hour and a half. And knowing the position of Georgia and the concerns that have been here since 2020, you would think that the notion of what happened and the president's judgment on it and any evidence that he had acquired would have been brought up in that conversation. You would have thought that the answer would have been much more direct. You saw David Cross stand up and simply say, yes. Yes, it was. And most of the analysts here in Georgia would concur immediately. The couching around the answer was telling for me. We'll explore that a little bit more as we go forward, but note that, one of the differences that the convention saw was when Cross was asked a question, the answer was direct and clear for folks very quickly. And in many cases, McCoon would spend minutes trying to put enough information or enough language around it so that it might, in some ways, be thought of in one direction. And some in the audience said, well, I'm not sure I really stood that exactly. So we'll move on for just a second. Let me go back to the pictures. And you're going to see this in the next video. And that is, again, Josh McCoon makes some statements and David begins to clarify them in the middle of the discussion. And this is a great example of what people called out. They said, David's trying to be direct about this stuff. And McCoon seems to be tailoring the language in a very careful way. So let's listen to this. There's two questions here. One is about John Burns and his conduct, his order, if you will, to keep Senator Colton Moore from entering the House chamber and the resulting assault, if you will, perhaps battery, alleged assault, alleged battery against Colton Moore that ended up with him to the floor, and then the resulting, case and so forth, and what we've learned since about a general counsel for John Burns not even being an attorney in Georgia, and so forth. The second part of this question revolves around the infamous 9-page NDA. So let's play this, and then we'll discuss it afterwards.
All right, now go to the question and answer. So one very, very straightforward question. As chairman, would you support the expulsion of John Burns for the Georgia GOP?
So we, for the first time ever, during my first term as chairman, expelled Jeff Duncan from the Georgia Republican Party. And we did that because there was a clear, unimpeachable with Jeff Duncan of campaigning against Republicans. He refused to vote for Herschel Walker in 2022 and went on international television to brag about it. He endorsed Joe Biden in 2024. Then he endorsed Kamala Harris in 2024. Then he went on a stage with Kamala Harris in 2024 to campaign for her in Atlanta, Georgia. So if he was to ever show up again, we would say, you're not a Republican. In fact, we've even got the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that kept referring to him as a Republican. We instructed them to stop calling him a Republican, and they've stopped doing it. When it comes to current office holders, including Speaker Burns, we will have a convention in about a month. There will be an opportunity for the convention to weigh in, whether it's John Burns, whether it's Brad Raffensperger. But I want to give a very specific answer to what I think maybe the question is referring to, because I don't want anybody leaving here saying, well, I didn't get a straight answer on this. If we're talking about somebody being able to get ballot access as a Republican and be on our primary ballot, let me be very clear about this. The statute on presidential qualifying gives full control to the state executive committee. We can decide who's going to be a candidate for president. For every other candidate, Georgia law, if they present their paperwork, they pay their qualifying fee, and they sign the loyalty oath, then you have to qualify them. Now, with Jeff Duncan, I'm pretty confident that we could have him prosecuted for false swearing if he signed a loyalty oath to the Georgia Republican Party. But when we're talking about a lot of these other people, what we're talking about is a lot of litigation. Some of you have reached out to me to talk about Rule 44 out in Texas and what they're doing out there to try to restrict ballot access. One big difference between Texas is there are two West Texas oil billionaires.
Point of information, is there a time limit on these?
If you want me to stop answering the question, I'll be glad to. I was trying to make sure I was being clear.
Please finish the answer, and then we'll keep a consistent time for the next one.
So as a practical matter, it would be very difficult for us to restrict candidates to have ballot access because we would either need to get the law changed or we would have to engage in litigation to have it turned.
All right. Thank you. David Cross, same question.
Can you believe this guy? It took 3 minutes. All right. What John Burns did, absolutely wrong. All right. Do I get to decide if he's tossed out? That's up to the delegates at the state convention. But I will tell you this: if John Burns is pushed out, he's going to run as a Democrat. So just be aware that it's not as simple as.
Oh, did the mic die? There we go. All right.
Good.
I want to
Because
pause
there
there.
was a clear, unimpeachable record.
I want to pause there for just a second. So notice that the two answers. One was, gosh, it's going to be awful tough to go after Burns because of litigation, as opposed to this is what was right, this is what was wrong, and I have to face. That's where David went. Now the other thing is, if you look, he didn't talk about what was done to Senator Colton Moore and the response that the GOP has had or has not had in light of that. So lots of issues here. Now we're going to get in next to
So that's what's going on in Georgia. I just wanted to show you some of that. That's from our Georgia show on Sundays at 2 p.m. and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, both times. And there's just a lot of stuff going on in Georgia. Georgia is the epicenter of a lot of this fraud that's going on, and the epicenter of the establishment trying to keep people out of the party to prevent election integrity, to prevent a whole lot of things. I mean, the governor Kemp has gone to Davos many times. So it's up in your grill, as they would say. We're going to take a break. I'm going to come back. I want to talk about Israel. Hope you're enjoying the show. We'll be right back.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. He wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, "You use Alp?" "Yeah, I do," says my friend. "So do I," says the cop. "We all do." He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, "Drive safely, sir," and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine marriage.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Before we move on to talking about Israel, I just want to mention, check out the wellness company. Go to twc.health/CDM. This is their travel kit. I use it all the time. Every time I travel, I take it with me now because I've needed it many times, and it's so convenient to have antibiotics or whatever you need right there. They have a lot of other different emergency medical kits you can take a look at that would fit your family. You may need more than one. They have the supplements like the Spike Wellness or a Spike Ultimate Spike Detox. To if you have somebody who's vaccinated, it can get rid of the spike protein, the nitrokinase in it, etc. There's all kind of subscriptions, free pharmaceuticals and supplements. It's just fantastic. Doctors' visits online, really re-engineering healthcare. So they've been a big supporter of us. So if you support them, you're supporting free media. twc.health/CDM. Use promo code CDM. Now, Israel, this has been a big theme of ours, and we're going to stay on it. So we put up a story up, strategic ambiguity on the Trump relations with Israel, a White House pushes for peace. So what has happened? There was a lot of hostages. We've talked about the Netanyahu government. We've gone in depth of that in the last week. We've talked about the multiple wars, the Ring of Fire with Hezbollah in the north, Hamas, and then the Houthis down in Yemen. All of this is of a piece. Trump is trying to end the wars and find a solution. It looks like Israel does not want the wars to end. In fact, that's what Trump envoy Witkoff said in the article, that we want the hostages back, but Israel wants the wars to continue. So we're trying to present both sides here and be factual, but the truth is that Trump went behind Israel's back and negotiated directly with Hamas to get the American hostage back. Eden Alexander, he'll be released tonight, I understand. Tonight, that's tonight Israel time, so in a few hours. Obviously, his family is very happy. There are a couple dozen, maybe a lot less still alive in the tunnels that Hamas holds. And Netanyahu's come out and said, well, we do want to get the hostages back, but the main issue is to defeat Hamas. So that war is continuing. The U.S. is trying to negotiate humanitarian aid for Hamas. I mean, obviously, you have a situation where there are two adversaries that hate each other, and neither one wants to give up. One has hostages. Israel's using the tactic of starving out Hamas because a lot of the money was being taken that was supposed to be aid for the people and taken by Hamas, and they would sell it or use it to force people to do what they wanted in Gaza. So it's a really, really bad situation, and people are right. The only person that can solve this is Donald Trump. So, but then you have Israeli journalists, calling Witkoff a fool. It's just a disaster. I mean, there are also reports of Trump Xing out Netanyahu from communications because of the Mike Waltz issue, where allegedly Waltz was providing intelligence to the Israelis. We haven't seen proof of that, but that's the reporting and the rumor. Just a mess with this whole situation. And again, the only one that can solve it is Donald Trump. So we hope you enjoyed the show today. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 Eastern to noon, Monday through Friday. Wednesday night, we'll have the Georgia show. Also, if you're in the Colorado area, we have the Colorado show on Sundays at 4. You can find all of this if you go to cdm.press, top menu, CDTV. You can find all of the different shows we do, the military shows, war stories, sit reps in the Pacific, in Ukraine. We do the Colorado show. I have my own long form interview show called The Information Operation, where we do really long form discussions, kind of Larry King-esque, with how they're providing the info op against the West and against humanity in general. So check out all that. We really appreciate your viewing. Put us in your daily scan. We're on podcast. You can listen to this intelligence brief later in the day, but there's a lot to put out every day. We'll be back tomorrow with more great guests. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you tomorrow.